Welcome to The Spotlight, the podcast where veterans and military spouses connect and share how their military experience has transformed their lives and their businesses. Here's your host, Bob Louthen.
Hey, this is your host, Bob Louthen, founder of the VeteranCrowd Network, the network that brings veterans and veteran-led businesses together with each other and the resources they need to prosper. And you are tuning into The Spotlight. Hey, welcome folks to The Spotlight on the VeteranCrowd Network. My guest today, Ryan Meehan, is a graduate of the United States Military Academy at West Point. He is an Army infantry officer, having done a couple of tours in Afghanistan. He is a graduate of the Wharton School, came back and got his MBA, and most importantly now, he is the managing director of Aviano Capitol, a search fund where he is looking to buy a business. Today, we're going to be talking about his background, his experiences in the military, and also a little bit about the trail of a person trying to buy a company. Ryan, welcome to the Spotlight. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
So let's go back before we jump into kind of a discussion about transitioning and buying a business and get into the depth of that. You took a little bit of an unusual path to go to West Point. You actually went somewhere else to college first and then ended up shifting direction. Tell everybody where you grew up and what was going on when you were a young person.
Sure. So I'm here in Connecticut, the great state of Connecticut. It's where I grew up in the Northwest in a small farm town. Before going to West Point, I went to the University of Connecticut, and I was at the University of Connecticut when the terrorist attacks 9/11 happened. And I remember sitting in class and leaving class and hearing the news. And for me, as I think a lot of people, it's a pivotal point in my life, or at least a point in which it made me do a lot of reflection and thinking about what direction I was heading. And I decided I was going to join the military at that point, and I decided to do so by way of West Point. I applied to the academy. I actually applied late and nearly missed the entire admissions round. I was also a former wrestler, fairly accomplished wrestler in high school, and decided I was going to try to wrestle at the academy. And so I ended up going to the prep school for a year. So I went to the prep school down at Fort Monmouth, New Jersey, spent a year there, and then joined the West Point class of 2007.
Did you actually matriculated at UConn before and gone to school for a while? So how many years were you in college?
Quite a few, but it really worked out well. I think it allowed me to enter the academy maybe at a little more mature point in my life. And then also, I wasn't alone, right? There's a lot of prior service guys and other athletes who are a couple of years older. So it just felt like I fit right in. But yes, I definitely have quite a few years in college.
Got the full college experience, if going to a military school can be described as college. Anyway, so you graduate from West Point. You went to Ranger School too, right?
Mm-hmm. I did. Like most infantry. Yeah, it's it's something I'm very, very proud of. A kind of an accomplishment I think most of us that do it are proud of. I was a winter ranger, meaning I went to started ranger school in January. It was very cold, and I was fortunate enough to go straight through, so I didn't recycle any phases. Went straight through, which was more than enough time in ranger school for me, and it was a great learning experience. It's difficult. It's physically very challenging, but ultimately it's all about leadership, right? It's about pushing junior leaders to their limits and then placing them in positions of responsibility, and then making them execute under those conditions. So for me, it was, I deployed to Afghanistan probably 2 months after graduating from Ranger School, and it was the perfect preparation. My first mission in Afghanistan was an air assault into the mountains, and it felt like Ranger School 2.0. It felt like I hadn't skipped a beat. I was doing on the ground everything that I had just prepared for months earlier. So yeah, it was a great experience. I'm glad I did it. I think I think it served me well. So
You went to Afghanistan twice.
I
The
did.
second time as
Yeah.
a company commander, or
As a company executive officer, and then I did command the company for a period of time downrange. So which I was lucky to do. So I really kind of got the full experience. And I think what was most interesting and maybe perhaps unique to my experience is I actually went back to the same place. When we were up in Kunar province in 2007, 2008. They made a movie about our unit during that period. It's called Restrepo, done by Sebastian Younger. He did a really good job. I joined those guys in 2008 and then redeployed, spent a year in Italy training back up, and then we went back to Afghanistan, went right back to the same place. So it was really interesting. I got to really see the development of that part of the country over the course of several years.
I have I've seen that documentary, but I hadn't put two and two together. So your unit was involved in Restrepo, which was the name of uh, the forward operating base, I guess, is named after someone who was in the unit, maybe perhaps.
Yep,
My
named
memory
after one of
serving
our
me correct.
medics. Yeah, after
Right.
one of our medics who unfortunately was killed early on in the deployment. Yeah,
It's a very tough section of Afghanistan, and I have an enormous amount of respect and appreciation for what the post 9/11 volunteers in our military are doing. I served in a prior time, and it's just amazing what you guys have done. And candidly, the burden that's been placed on your generation has been enormous. But you come back, you get out of the Army as a captain. Let's talk a little bit about your transition and what you were doing and going back to business school.
sure. Yeah, so I was one of these guys where I wasn't quite sure in terms of my military experience. I wasn't. I think some people know early on I'm going to do X amount of time and get out, or maybe I want to spend a career. I wasn't entirely sure. I kind of left the door open, and after I felt I was very fortunate in the military. I was lucky enough to serve, to be based in Italy with a fantastic unit. Went on two deployments. As you noted, the first one especially was a very tough deployment for our unit. And at that point, I felt like I felt like I had done my part in terms of service to our country and in terms of personally what I wanted to achieve in the military and leading troops. And so I decided at that point that I was ready for the next chapter in my life. And yeah, I had thought about business school or law school. And I guess I wish I had a better explanation as to why I chose business school, but part of it came down to a really good friend of mine who was a fellow officer in my unit, and he had just finished law school before he joined us, and I'd say his opinion weighed heavily on what I decided to do and where I wanted to go. And so I decided I wanted to be in the business world. I wanted to get out and grow personally, but also build something and grow something. So I applied to all the top business schools and was fortunate enough to get into a few of them, and chose the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania.
You spent some time in the energy industry after that, and now you've launched Aviano Capitol, obviously related to your the name related to your service with the 173rd. Let's talk. Let's peel the layers back on this. Tell everybody what a search fund is, and just a little bit of the mechanics of that.
Sure. So yeah, as you know, so coming out of business school, I joined a bank. I joined JP Morgan and started off as a trader. So I was trading oil and gas, both in New York City and Houston, and really enjoyed it. Had a great experience, and it's one of the reasons I was drawn to that, I believe, is my background as an infantry guy and former athlete and military officers. It felt to me like being sort of on the front lines, if you will, of the financial markets, and that was really my draw there. And but after a few years, one of the things I noticed that I missed was building teams and growing organizations. And so, as you mentioned, I ended up I left there and I joined a portfolio company of a private equity firm where I ran all of our operations. I did that for a few years, and then ultimately felt I was ready to do it on my own. And so yeah, so I raised a search fund, Aviano Capitol, named after Aviano Air Base, where we used to do our airborne operations in Italy. A search fund is it's a special purpose fund backed by a group of investors, most of whom are all either private equity or venture capital investors. They have their own firms. So they back me in my pursuit to locate, acquire, and grow one individual business. And what makes us unique from, I think, a lot of other investment vehicles is that our intent from the beginning is for me to step in to the chief executive role of the company that we acquire.
So you've been, how long ago did you launch the effort? When did you look at sort of company number one? Let's start with that.
Sure. So, I think, so I officially launched in January of this year. I began fundraising probably in the fall of last year. So it takes it can take up to half a year perhaps to raise your fund and get your cap table together. The first company I looked at was actually a company I looked at before we closed my fund and launched. It was oddly enough, it was a fellow veteran-owned business by a fellow West Point grad. I learned a lot about the experience, but it ended up not being the right fit for me at the right time. So we went forward with the forming of the fund and launched. And yeah, so I think the first phone calls and meetings I had with real business owners were probably towards the end of January of this year.
So to share with the listeners sort of the process. Number one, you've got to kiss a lot of frogs to find the one that transforms, right?
Yeah, there are a lot of businesses out there for sale, and there are fewer great businesses out there for sale, and there are even fewer great businesses with owners selling for the right reasons who fit our criteria, who view us as the right option for them. So yeah, I can say it's so far it can be a grueling experience, but I enjoy it. I enjoy talking to business owners. I've learned a ton about a wide variety of industries so far. And I get, there's a lot of great people out there who have built really unique and interesting companies. And I've had the chance to talk to several dozen at least so far, just this year.
And now a word about a VeteranCrowd Spotlight sponsor. Cardomax is owned and operated by former Navy SEAL Sean Matson. Cardomax has designed just the right supplements for you and is offering VeteranCrowd an exclusive offer. Buy one, get one free on your first order. Go to cardomax.com and use promo code VeteranCrowd. That's cardomax.com, helping you achieve your max. Now back to your host, Bob Loudon.
So we're talking to Ryan Meehan. He's the managing director of Aviano Capitol. Ryan, is there a triage process when a new opportunity, becomes available to you? I mean, what sort of the high level things that you examine first, that if as a business owner who ultimately wanted to be acquired someday and close a deal and maybe maximize their value, I mean, what are the things that are sort of important to you and the first things that you examine?
Sure. Yeah, so great question. And I guess I would start off by saying there are several types of investors out there, right? There's venture capital, there's private equity, there are folks who consider themselves growth investors, other people are value investors. We consider ourselves very much value investors. And so for us, what we're looking for is we're looking for a strong business with a model that we believe is enduringly profitable into the future. So when we look at a business, we first filters is size. Size matters in terms of the kind of deal we're looking to do. So we look at deals from a generally speaking, an EBITDA perspective or cash flow multiple perspective. For us specifically, we target anything above 1.5 million in EBITDA, or 1.5 million roughly in net earnings. Looking for a total enterprise value, generally speaking, somewhere north of $10 million, so $10 to $30 million would kind of be the sweet spot. Although there's definitely deals we could do that are bigger than that. So we're looking at a strong history of profitability. We're looking for an owner who is looking to exit the business for the right reasons. Maybe they want to retire. Maybe it's a family-owned business without a succession plan. Sometimes a highly technical founder who's looking to have a liquidity event and take some of his risk off the table and grow into the future. We can technically, generally speaking, we can be a very good partner for that type of founder if they're looking to release the reins as CEO. So those are some of the things we look at.
So I always call EBITDA sort of the great equalizer in business. EBITDA, for those that don't know, is earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. But it really is the ability of a business to pay its cost of capital, if you will, right? And I say it's the great equalizer because, they're all different types of businesses, manufacturing companies and that make tangible things. There's technology businesses, there's service companies, and just a whole myriad. But at the end of the day, all of them should be able to calculate EBITDA, and $1 of EBITDA at business A is equal to $1 of EBITDA at business B, right? And so from your perspective, and you're buying dollars of EBITDA, right?
Exactly. We are effectively paying for future cash flows of the business. And that's why it's so important for us to identify those businesses whose business is going to be there, equally as strong in the future.
If I'm a business owner, one of the things I want to offer to you is predictable, recurring cash flow. All right. But maybe a second thing that I want to offer to you as a buyer of my business is a great team. And if I sell you my company, I can step away from it and the business will still operate. How do you assess the management team when you're looking at it? And is a business where the business owner is irrelevant to the business more valuable to you, the one that where the business owner does everything?
Yeah, that's a great question, and to your point, there's and I've had this conversation with quite a few business owners, right, where there are folks who have been very successful at designing a service business that is based around their own unique set of skills, abilities, and connections and network. There's a difference between that sort of business, which can be quite profitable for the owner and the individual. There's a big difference between that and someone who has built a business that, as you alluded, can somewhat operate without them as the key driver providing all the value to that business, right? And it's a difference between somebody designing sort of their own lifestyle business, providing a service or good that's needed, and somebody who's really built something that can say, hey, look what I've built, and this business that I've built is it's needed. It has recurring revenue. It has a great reputation. You're always going to have certain key players and key employees who you don't want to lose, right? Ideally, the business doesn't have senior individuals who, if they left, the business would fail. That would be, for us, that would be a deal breaker. So yeah, so absolutely, there's oftentimes a strong contrast between somebody who's built a great business or service based around their own competency and what they're able to deliver to the market, and somebody who's really built something that, to your point, can somewhat stand alone, or can get to that point of standing alone relatively shortly once the owner exits within a 12 to 24 month period.
I read a lot of business books. I read a lot of business books, Ryan, and three words that I'm trying to build into my business are, innovate what you're doing, be able to quantify the results, and then orchestrate the operations and push all of that down so that, those things can be orchestrated at the very lowest level and not so much involve me in the course of the business. Here's another question out there, or a piece of advice to business sellers. Customer concentration, how big of a deal is that to you?
It's one of the key things we look at. We look for recurring revenue, or at least repeat revenue, low customer concentration, low debt on the company, strong EBITDA margins, 15% or greater. But yeah, customer concentration is a big deal, right? If the entire business, and it depends who that customer is, and you see this a lot, I think, in government services, or at least I've encountered it quite often in that industry. But yeah, it can be a deal breaker for some investors. It depends who that big customer is. It depends how sticky that relationship is, of course. But yeah, to the extent, I feel comfortable giving advice to current owners, I'd say that if you're looking to make an exit at some point, and for the good of your own business, you of course would want to have a more diversified customer base. In terms of numbers, I think people look at, no more than 20% of your business to one large customer type ratio. But yeah, it's a big deal. It's something we look at. And to your point earlier, I think something I would add on is when business owners are considering selling their business or growing their business, I think there's oftentimes a decision they need to make, and maybe it's better made early on than later, is what are they doing with the revenues and the profits from their business, right? And what I've seen a lot of is there's people who they've built a great business, but they've extracted a lot from that business over the years, and they've paid themselves quite well, and probably paid other people quite well over that period of time. And what you need to realize is if that's the route you're going, that where you're going to finally arrive, if you want to sell your business, is not going to be as valuable as you might think. And the flip side of that is I've seen other folks who have really been effective at reinvesting into their company and really growing the business. And then, the trade-off there, of course, is that on the back end, you've built something that is perhaps more likely to be a standalone entity that is able to sell for a higher multiple, sell for a higher price, and you'll probably have more people interested.
Ryan, the Wharton School's known for finance, I think among the top business schools. When you look at company financial statements and historical statements that you get, some are better than others, right? Have you got any guidance for what's better? And just to sort of put this out there, there are a lot of businesses that the business owner runs them out of a checkbook. And if you're ever going to sell your company, you need to get past that at the very least. But, what have you seen that's been sort of great? And what have you seen that's sort of been like, I can't believe he did it that way?
Yeah. Great question. And it's all over the map. I'd say generally speaking, everybody wants to do the right thing. Right. And I think there's a wide range of the way people handle their internal financials. One thing I had a conversation recently and with a banker and we were talking about this, and one piece of advice that I think is good for business owners is if you ever intend to sell your business, start planning on it now, right? Because when the day comes, if you don't have all your ducks in a row, it's really going to make your life difficult to try to jump through all the hoops and then put everything in order. So I've seen a wide array of different methods. The best ones are just the most organized people who just year to year stay on top of what the business is doing, where the money is going. Folks who have a strong handle on their expenses, right? And are keeping business expenses with the business and personal expenses not with the business. So I'd say, in terms of anybody who's considering selling their business in the future, where you think you might be, start planning today. And the sooner you can get those things organized and ready to go, your life's going to be a lot easier once you actually start entertaining offers.
We've been talking about putting together a 5-part program to help business owners who are veterans, get ready to sell their business 3, 4, 5 years from now, because you don't want to be doing it the day after you call the investment banker, to help you sell your company. You want to be doing all of that in advance, because playing catch up is almost impossible. What about the timing of a sale? You alluded to that earlier. That the timing is right and the seller is selling for the right reasons.
Yeah. So, when you're looking to buy a business, it's one of the, and I'd say maybe even more so in brokered deals. Brokered meaning either through a business broker or through an investment banker or some sort of ancillary firm that's showing the business. The first thing, one of the first things we always ask is, well, why? Well, actually, we ask two things, and is one, why does this business exist? Right? That's always a good question. Why does this business exist? What do they do? What is the reason for this business being here? And two is why do they want to sell? And for me, that's generally speaking one of the first things I ask, especially if they're the ones selling. If I'm reaching out proprietarily in advance, that's then I'm the one perhaps seeing if they're interested in selling. But I'd say that's something people are going to want to know. So if you are selling your business or you're planning on it, buyers are going to feel more comfortable if you're selling because you want to retire, if you're selling because all of your net worth is built into your business and you're looking to diversify, they'll be, more open to the deal if everything's going really well and the owner feels like they would like a partner and there are some skill gaps and that they think they can fill on through a series of board seats or bringing new people in. Those are all good. Those are all great reasons and good scenarios. If you're looking to sell because things aren't going well, it's going to be tougher. It's going to be tough if you're looking to sell. Sometimes serial entrepreneurs, that's a pretty easy story to tell in terms of, there's folks who like to build things but don't like to run things quite as much. And for folks doing what I'm doing, those can be great opportunities. But that's what we mean when we mean selling for the right reasons. Is we want to know what the motivation is, and sometimes it's not business related. It could be partners that don't see eye to eye on the future of the company. It could be a family-owned business where there might be an issue going on in the family. So it doesn't always have to be business related, but the perspective from somebody sitting where I am is we want to know why, and we want to be comfortable with that reason.
Sort of a two-part question. Have you looked at any veteran-owned businesses out there, and have you noticed if you have you noticed anything about a veteran-owned business culture that might set it apart from a non-veteran-owned business?
I absolutely have. And there are a few things that stand out to me. One, veterans are, and I have to thank the general, veteran world in general, that they're always fantastic at getting back to me. I always hear back from them. They're always happy to jump on a call. And if they're not a good fit, I've been lucky enough to have them introduce me to other folks, and it's always great speaking to other veterans. One of the things I have noticed is I would say that the extent of organizational leadership within veteran-owned businesses, I've noticed is oftentimes a step above some of the others. In particular, there are, I'd say, it's a bit of a sweeping statement, but I'm comfortable saying most veteran-owned businesses that I've encountered, they tend to have mission statements. They tend to have a vision, type of leadership, mission-focused vision for the company. Oftentimes, they have well-established SOPs, standard operating procedures. I've noticed that, and I think that's just a carryover from their time in the service. But that's definitely something I've noticed, and I'd say generally speaking, good cultures, right? I've been very, very pleased with just seeing a lot of the strong leadership and core values and a lot of the veteran-owned businesses out there.
Team-oriented, mission-oriented, heightened sense of ethics, personal accountability, all of those things that we harp upon. Hey, Ryan, we've run out of time, if you can believe it. Our 30 minutes is up. Thank you so much for stepping into the spotlight and sharing this journey that you're on. How do people get in touch with you and Aviano Capitol?
Sure. Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure. You can find us on my website, avianocapital.com. I'm on LinkedIn, Ryan Meehan. I'm fairly accessible. Shoot me a note. Anybody who's looking to sell a business, I'd love to speak with you. Anybody interested in exploring, anything related to my past or the route I've taken, I'm always happy to talk to fellow veterans and would just say, feel free to reach out.
We will put links to Ryan on the show notes for this episode. Again, Ryan Meehan, a managing director of Aviano Capitol, a search fund looking to buy a business right now. He's on that journey. Thanks so much to you for stepping into the spotlight. I'll throw out a big Army Bravo Zulu to you, Ryan, and that's a wrap.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you for listening to Spotlight by VeteranCrowd. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. For more information and uploads, please visit our website at VeteranCrowdNetwork.com. We'll see you next time.